We'll just go right into it. Last year, I was running the Engage program, and like we've said, is a mobile program. It's us going in and out of hospitals. It's expanded now into other areas besides hospitals. We're working with some fire departments and police departments as well. But back then, our primary source for referrals was hospitals, and we would get the referrals from social workers mostly, sometimes doctors, and sometimes nurses, but mostly the social workers or caseworkers or case managers, however they're referred to. And I've had my fair share of stigma. I've had to actually stand up to doctors, which was pretty cool, especially when it worked. And I got them to let our clients stay an extra day so we could have an extra day to try to figure out their treatment option. And that started in 2017, that official program. And I had some experience with working with hospitals in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. So it was a good fit for me to run this team, I thought. That's why I took the job. And we did a lot of work, and I watched it all come crashing down last year. Not to sound dramatic, but that's how it happened. We, just like everybody else in this room, I was watching the news, and I was starting to get a little concerned about not just my personal safety, but like my job security and my safety of my team and the safety of our clients. And like, what is going to happen when the hospitals fill up? And I noticed that the tables that people had out with the hand sanitizer and the questionnaire got closer and closer and closer to the parking lot, meaning eventually they get you right at the front door, and then eventually they just shut that door. I got a message from one of my staff members. His name is also Scott, and he said that he talked to Scott Shadle. He called me and he said, Scott just called me and told me to turn around and go back to the shop. I said, really? And he said, yep. Hegira has decided to we call it ground. I know we're not in planes, but Hegira decided to ground all the teams, including our mobile mental health teams, which is called COPE, Community Outreach for Psychiatric Emergencies. And so I said, well, I kind of saw this coming. So I called Scott Shadle to confirm, and he said, yeah, we decided to do this before the hospitals decided to do it. And some of the hospitals had already decided to do it. We were really trying to pull some strings, and we were already having a hard time getting in to see our people. So that's what happened. Obviously, personally, I started to get very nervous for the team and for there's a lot of uncertainty going all around the world. And I was just curious on what was going to happen to my program that I helped build and put together, and what was going to happen to me professionally. And not too long after Engage got, I'm not going to say shut down, I'll just say, put on hold because it's still around. I ended up going to Oakdale, and they did not have official peer leadership, but they had peer recovery coaches there for a long time. And so they thought that would be a good fit for me. So I ran the peer team. Fortunately, by the time I got there, some of the peers had already decided that it wasn't safe for them to be there, like a lot of other staff. So they had left. This is April, May 2020. So this was a lot of situations were happening. Unfortunately, I already lost a friend of mine and a colleague that I knew even before I worked at Hegira. I knew him for a long time, and he unfortunately caught COVID and passed away. And so it was just a very hectic, crazy time. And I'm in recovery, and everybody I work with is in recovery, and some of us are co-occurring. So while we're all worried about what's happening professionally, I had to remind myself, hey, you need to make sure you're okay. And check with your team. Let your bosses know how you're doing, because they're busy running around trying to run all the different programs that are going on with Hegira, and they're also worried about their families and their friends. So it was a very, very hectic time. Things settled down, and I ended up bringing some people over from my Engage program over to Oakdale, and we just kind of filled this huge gap with a lot of staff that had left. Most of them came back, but there was an issue with safety. Some people had legit health concerns that they might, they were more susceptible to it. So we were doing some other groups. We were working with the recovery techs. We were filling in their slots. We were pretty much doing everything. Wouldn't have been surprised if they told me to get in the kitchen and start cooking for everybody. So, which would have been great. I ended up settling down, and we started to form a program and form a curriculum, and we started to incorporate multiple pathways into Oakdale Recovery Center, which had never really been fully done before. And we had some new coaches come on that were hired on just to work at Oakdale. And while we had some staff kind of in limbo, so to speak, going back and forth from Engage to Oakdale. And during this time, I reconnected with my therapist, and I did some telehealthing of my very own, and I did a couple phone sessions, and made sure I did my own checkup from the neck up. I checked in with a lot of people from my recovery family, my Smart Recovery family, my AA family. I even checked in with my Recovery Dharma folks. I get around people. I know a lot of recovery folks. I was checking in with my non-recovery friends who were some of them were really struggling. And right to Scott's point, more people that drank were drinking more. People that used were using more. And during this time, our poor community, our addiction community, that didn't stop them from overdosing and going into the hospitals. We just couldn't do anything about it because the hospitals at this point for many months were just completely locked down. They wouldn't let any outside people in there. And yeah, as bad as I felt for the clients, there was a part of me that didn't want to go to the hospitals either for my own safety, my safety of my wife and my family. So it was a very, very, very difficult time. But we just kept moving forward, and we kept making the best out of a bad situation. And it did have some benefits. One of my staff members was working part-time for us and full-time for a restaurant that ended up going under. And it was a big chain. They all closed. And she said, "What am I going to do?" And I said, "Well, come on over to Oakdale." And fast forward a few months, she's now full-time with benefits, working for Engage again. She's going back out into the field, doing what she loves. And now she doesn't have to work at the restaurant anymore, which she was actually kind of happy about that. So, that kind of stuff happens. One of the things I wanted to point out when I was trying to make little notes, just to make sure I point to certain things during my time, was when I got back to work, I missed a kind of important part. There was a time where I caught COVID, and I was one of the first people that I knew that caught it. And I was also one of the first people that caught it that was asymptomatic. So there was an immediate, obvious panic with everybody that I knew, everybody I knew online, family from across the country. They just didn't know anybody. And I had friends that would lean left, lean right politically, and all of a sudden, it was just kind of this unifying moment. I'm like, great, all I had to do was get COVID to unify my family. Awesome. So, but I did a daily log, and I ended up working from home because I never had any symptoms. And I, learned a lot about Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Skyping and all that stuff. And I really kind of got into it after a while and had some crazy fun backgrounds, which this is a real background. That's really my pantry behind me. But I had fun, I made the best of it. And I luckily I didn't get too bad at cabin fever or anything. And when I got back to work, I just hopped right back to it and started making sure we were running meetings and we were reaching out to people. And one night I was covering phones at the front desk, and somebody called me who was intoxicated, and I talked to her for a little while, and I tried to just comfort her and encourage her, and I told her the usual. That we all say in Wayne County with Medicaid recipients is you got to call that 800 number. And she was, of course, delighted to hear that. And as I was talking to her, I said, "So what happened? What do you think happened to you?" And she said, "Well, I couldn't go to meetings anymore. So of course I relapsed." And that I'm glad she couldn't see the face I made when she said that, because it was very like, what? And I said, okay, all right. And I just kind of went along with it. And that stuck in my head ever since. So, and I use that to work with my clients. And I'm definitely going to use it any opportunity I get to share, in an advocacy setting or a presentation setting, because that speaks volumes about that person's recovery plan. Not knocking that person. I'm saying in general, recovery plans tend to be very thin because of the misconceptions from the recovery community that have been going on for years. And I'm a very loud advocate when it comes to multiple pathways, and not just multiple pathways means more than just, hey, there's more meetings than AA, because luckily that's getting to the point now. It makes me happy to see that I'm not the only ones yelling that from the rooftops anymore. That's kind of a given, that there's more meetings than AA. Multiple pathways means so much more than that. Like, there's other options besides going to meetings. There is getting your own outpatient therapist, getting in a fitness regime, finding healthy hobbies, new hobbies, old hobbies, getting into music, whether it's playing or listening or trying new things. I could go on. And I felt so bad for this person that she felt in that moment that was her recovery plan, was going to meetings. So therefore, by not being able to go to meetings, she, of course, relapsed. And I asked her about virtual meetings, and she kind of scoffed at that idea. And then that started getting me thinking about what things were like for me, 8 years ago, when I first started working, or I worked in the field for 10 years. At this point, been sober for 12 plus. But there was a time when I first started talking about multiple pathways and talking about virtual meetings. People would laugh at the very notion of going on to an online meeting. They would say, Chris, that just doesn't work. You got to go for the face-to-face. You got to have that experience. You got to, I don't know, hold hands and hug and pray at the end of it. And I said, I don't think that's true for every single person. I've met clients that have said, I can't go to meetings. There's too many people there. They have genuine diagnosed disorders, anxiety disorders, if you will, and they can't be ignored. You can't just say, suck it up and go. Some people are going to, if you do that, they're going to go to these meetings and they're going to retain nothing. They're just going to be freaking out on the inside the entire time, not absorbing any of the material, not hearing any positive messages. They're just going to be thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be here. And granted, that's the case for a lot of new folks, but I've been an advocate for that for a very long time. And there was some strange satisfaction that I felt with this resurgence and insurgence, or whatever, blow up of online meetings. And there were a couple times where it was just like, at the same time as I was happy, I was kind of irritated, because I was like, these meetings have been here the entire time. These meetings have been available since 2019, 2018, 2017, and just going further back. They've been around for 10, 20 years, some of them. Smart Recovery has had virtual meetings and chat rooms and all kinds of other online options since they started over 25 years ago. AA's been around, they're pushing 100, but they've had online options and phone-in options for years. It's just some facilities choose to not do the research and provide all the resources to their clients. And at the two places I've worked at, I make sure that that's what we do. That's what my team does, is we provide all the resources that are possible, not just the face-to-face meetings that are in the Metro Detroit area. We're going to try to, if we get a chance to work with the client one-on-one in a more intimate basis, we're going to get more detail. We're going to find out, all right, we'll find out meetings that are in your area, like in your hood. We're also going to find out what virtual options are available as well, because now most people have a smartphone. Most people all have access to a laptop or library or something.